Hello everyone, my name is Apple and my Chinese name is Lin Yunting. And today I'm going to talk about a book called Learning and Teaching English, published by Oxford. And I will talk about Chapter 3, Language. And let's get started so far. But first, I want to ask you an easy question. Do you know what language is? Language is a tool that we use every day to communicate with other people. We encode by using language, which is made up of a range of components. Language starts with the smallest component and work. Individual sounds of a spoken language are called phonemes. There are two types of phoneme: vowels and consonant. Letter is not always the same as the symbol represents the sounds, and there are 44 sounds compared with 26 English alphabets. Some particular vowels and consonants are often different or not exist in other languages. For example, in Italian, the I phonemes didn't exist. So teachers need to be aware of learners' weaknesses and help them practice in recognizing the sounds correctly. For example, adjectives describe things, people, and ideas, but adverbs tells us about an action or state in terms of how, where, and when. And pronoun replaces nouns and refers to people, places, or things. We also change word endings and beginnings because of some reasons. For example, we will change adjectives to noun, like happy changes to happiness. Adjective change to adverb, like quick change to quickly. And noun change to adjective, like fog change to foggy. We can also put in groups belongs to the same category, which is called a lexical set. Words can come together to form noun and verb phrases. Like the bus stop is a noun phrase, and get on with is a verb phrase. Some words come together or collocate. Like we will say make a plan, not do a plan, or we will say do a good job, not make a good job. In noun phrase, the adjectives comes before noun. In other language, the order of phrase is different from others. So like in French, noun comes before adjective. In a verb phrase, different combinations are used to refer to different types. Words can also be categorized as synonyms, which have the same meaning or similar meanings. Words that can be only labeled synonyms or antonyms in a limited way. We can say, I cut the bread or slice the bread, but I cut my thumb or I sliced my thumb has totally different meaning. The way which individual words often flow into each other without a clear break is an important feature of English pronunciation and often makes listening difficulties for the learners. When we spoke English, we don't stress every word equally. We will say the content words in a clearly and strongly way, such as nouns and verbs, rather than words we use to link the content words together. And sentences, stress can change the meaning of a sentence. Next, when we are speaking, we will probably focus on one information. And intonation can help listener to know if the speaker finished or not, and also indicates the speaker is asking something. The volume and pitch is important because it can tell us about how the speakers feel. Words work in a different way, refers to people, actions, and ideas. Other words used to help putting sentences together tell us about an action or event, or things and people. Vowels and consonants combine in a number of ways. For example, vowel and vowel. Second, consonant and vowel. English spelling only loosely connected the actual sound of words. English is not a phonetic language. We need to be able to interpret the correct written form. When we are listening to something and want to write it down, we need to be able to spell out what we hear correctly. Now, I will talk about the syllable. Syllables are made by vowel or vowel plus consonant. A word has more than one syllable is emphasized more than another. Word stress can be indicated in a phonetic transcription. The unstressed vowel, often called schwa. The meaning of a word can change with the stress. Nouns often have the first syllable and the verbs have the second syllable. What we say and how we say depends on some extent on what the previous speaker said is called the sentence stress. Next, let us talk about language in the classroom. In this part, we divide it into two parts, introducing language and using language that has already been encountered. The learners need to know what this language means or how to form it, how to spell it, and how to pronounce it. They also need to use it to communicate. There are many ways to help learners understand the meaning of similar words or phrases. For example, give them examples or tell the learners to look up the word either in a monolingual or bilingual dictionary. It will take time for learners to understand the similarities and differences, and giving them clear examples is important. Provide a context which illustrates the meaning clearly. Also, a timeline can be used in a few ways. For example, teachers can draw on the board and explain to them. Ask the learners to design an appropriate timeline by themselves. Longer stretches interact people and also contain relationships between words and ideas. We interact with different people with different reasons, situations, and ways. There is a range of expressions that perform certain functions, and every function has exponent. Language users need to make choices about the language they choose to communicate with, and this choice is limited in the early stages of learning a language. In some language, the relationship between the speaker and listener will be reflected in grammar. When we speak Japanese, the relationship reflected in the verb ending. And English does not make the grammatical distinction between the different forms of you or short, long verb forms. There are no rules, but speaking longer phrase is more polite. For example, it is more polite when you say, "Where is the bank?" or "Excuse me, could you tell me where the bank is, please?" instead of just saying bank. There are two types of verb phrase which combine a verb, noun, and particle. Next building blocks we use to put sentences together are called clauses. Clause is a group of words that includes a subject and verb and can also combine it to form sentences. The word order in English determines whether a sentence is a statement or a question. And we also need to think about the relationship between the words when we put sentences together. Learners need to know the form the language takes in both spoken and written. For vocabulary items, like the word job, learners need to know which word is collocated with, like in verb phrases such as get a good job, and noun phrases, job application. It is important for learners to have full sentence examples so they can see how the word fits into the sentence pattern and lets the learners know how to pronounce the word. But how can we use it? We use past continuous to provide the background to event or action. The learners also need to know the limit of the use of a word. Some classrooms will use the ideas for use in the case of job, the past continuous, and going to make predictions. For example, teachers can ask the students to design a questionnaire about what job does people do, and also ask them what job they want to do in the future. Or learners think a situation which has a background or event, like the doorbell rings when someone is taking a bath. It is important to check whether the learners understand the meaning of the language or not. It's often be done by monitoring when the learners use in spoken and written. Concept questions is another way. We need to check the learners understand whether the sentences refers to the past, present, or future. Another way to help the learners understand the meaning of a structure as background situation. It can be used in many ways, such as pictures, dialogue, and short text. The example is, going to plus verb can be introduced through illustrations of situations which there are clues of this likely future event. And that's the end of my presentation of learning and teaching English. Thanks for your time.